Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you very much.
Welcome.
I want to thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. And I want to thank particularly the organizers of the conference for coming up with this very important topic. And I'm also glad to thank them for their guiding us. They have told us how Ubuntu, natural law, and human rights relate to Africa. However, I have two questions. Number one, Ubuntu, natural law, and human rights are an industry each. What holds them together? What do they have in common? The second question is that I observe that these are applied to Africa differently. The question therefore is, what is special about Africa is so that it takes a lion's share of these what I call human values. Why do I call them human values? I take Ubuntu to belong to Muntu. Muntu simply means a person, a human being. And everywhere in the world, they are Bantu. In other words, all of us here and elsewhere are Bantu. Ubuntu is what makes a human being a human being. Actually, when you lose Ubuntu, you reduce yourself to the level of an animal. Because Ubuntu means being humane, taking one another to human beings and treating each other as human beings. Cruelty, for instance, is the opposite of Ubuntu. And whoever is cruel to others is regarded to have lost his Ubuntu. Now, how is Ubuntu related to natural law and human rights? I regard natural law and human rights also to be similar to Ubuntu. Ubuntu defines umuntu. Humaneness defines humanity. Actually, there are two words, English word, the word humanity has two different meanings. It refers to all human beings collectively and to this humaneness, Ubuntu. They use the two words for both, umuntu and Ubuntu. This is the quality, the Ubuntu is the quality of umuntu. But how does it go? How is it lived such that umuntu has Ubuntu to I'm sorry. So I was saying that there is a need to find out why we have Ubuntu, natural law, and human rights together. If you look at the three, they are certainly so deep and wide that perhaps a conference could be held on each one of them in its own right. Why are we looking at them together? What do they have in common? And my argument is that the three are human values. They share being human values. They define human values. So I was saying that the three, namely Ubuntu, natural law, and human rights, share in humanity. The three are human values. And I was trying to relate to them, how they show how the three work together. And I was saying that Ubuntu defines a human being. What makes a human being is Ubuntu. Actually, in so many different languages, when you misbehave, you behave like an animal, they say you are not umuntu. You are not umuntu, you are an animal. You are something else. So Ubuntu is really what makes a person, whoever is umuntu is expected to have Ubuntu. So while all of us are a Bantu, namely human beings, some have Ubuntu and others have lost the Ubuntu. And we are all expected to have Ubuntu to safeguard our Ubuntu. So while Ubuntu defines you as a person, the natural law, which is actually part of you, the law that governs you and shows you this is right and that's wrong, the law that makes you like good things and abhor bad things. This law guides you to other people, and in the final analysis, you share your Ubuntu, or you extend your Ubuntu to the rest as is expected. And how is this connected to human rights? Human rights, in my view, are also embedded in a human person. Human rights are needs of a person, each one of us. And society is there to help each one of us attain his or her needs. So human rights are made possible by natural law and Ubuntu. So the three together are values that make society what actually it is. Society by nature is based on trust. Human beings, as it were, have that and sign the contract. Don't kill me and I don't kill you. Don't steal my property and I don't steal your property. And all these promises are made good by our Ubuntu, by our natural law, and by our human rights. So now, when it comes to the second question, why do we apply these natural human values to only Africa. Why? What explanation, what justification do we have? In my view, we need to be extremely careful with this because it can be dangerous. And I will share you my experience where I have seen the danger I'm talking about in reality. But before then, I want to note that human beings from time immemorial moved all over the world without any hindrance. There were no borders, no boundaries. And in the final analysis, Black people, for instance, found themselves all over. Don't think of the slave trade of yesterday. This found human Africans, Black people all over the world. And it's on record that actually when slavery came, some of the people who were already there were also hunted and sold. So slaves did not come only from Africa, but from all those societies that had already settled elsewhere. The point here is globalization. That globalization is an aspect also of human nature. People have moved freely till only recently when globalization means something different. And this current globalization needs to be understood in the context of dividing human beings. When the Swedish botanist categorized plants and animals, remember he made a very good warning that what he had come up with did not apply to human beings. He made it clear that the human race is one. But what happened afterwards? People categorized others into white, black, yellow, and red. And I wonder whether any of you has ever seen any of this person. I have never seen them anywhere. They are just ideas intended to divide people. And when it came to the Blacks in Africa, the divisions continued. And these people are divided into Bantu, Nilotics, Cushites, etc. And the school education we have had in Africa makes sure that these ideas are well understood and believed in. You remember, Wole Soyinka attacks this idea in that character, Lacunra, who says whatever is in a book is true. But all the same, so many believe these ideas are true. After all, they have passed examinations and answer the way these ideas are written in books. What's the result of this? The people who for so long lived together in peace are now sworn enemies as Bantu, Nilotic, Cushites, among others. As a matter of fact, as a younger lecturer in Makerere University in the 1980s, I attacked an idea of Bantu line. We were invited to participate in conferences organized according to Bantu and others. And said, but look, how can you talk of a Bantu line while we know that from time immemorial, people have been traveling, mixing? Where has this line come from? But the point here is this line is there. Just open Google and look at the map of Africa. The line is there. Why it can't be crossed, God knows. And in the final analysis, some of these ideas are created just to confuse people. That's why I am saying that limiting these human values to Africa could be dangerous. And I want just to give a few examples. Some time back, I attended an examination where panelists were actually looking at some students' presentations and grading them. A very good student from South Africa presented his work on Ubuntu. A panelist reacted sharply, telling this fellow to go and discuss those ideas where they belonged. I simply could not contain myself. Probably some of those listening now might remember that occasion. I stood up and attacked back. This time also attacked the attacker. I said, Madam, where do Ubuntu apply and where don't they apply? Because Ubuntu means the human quality. Whoever is a human being is expected to have Ubuntu. As I knew where the examiner came from, I pulled out a book written by a certain professor, a Luo, who when studying in Rome had written about Ubuntu. So when I say the thing can be dangerous, I know that so many people have feelings about being Bantu and others not being Bantu. As a result, we need to think of actually a way forward. And what is this way forward? I personally think that we need to look at a person as a self, as an individual. And when you look at this I, you find that each one of us is an I, and so we live in a community of I's. Each one of us is there. Now the idea of we are, therefore I am, to me does not make much sense. I am as I, and together we are. We do not begin from the totality. We begin from the individuals that form this totality. Where did this idea of we are, therefore I am, come from? Some people trying to develop Africanism as it were, wrongly attacked certain thinkers. You know Rene Descartes and his cogito ergo sum idea. Some thinkers wrote that while the Europeans say we are, sorry, I think therefore I am, the Africans say we are, therefore I am. Rene Descartes was a French philosopher, an individual thinker. He couldn't have been white. And therefore, basing oneself on that individual thinking, say that the whites say this, and therefore we reverse that, and does not make sense to me. I am me as an individual, therefore we are together. And with this I-ness, I extend our thinking far beyond Africa to the whole world. Wherever we are, We are Bantu with Ubuntu and natural law and are expected to live human rights. Live, mark that. Live human rights, not legislate them, not list them, not preach them, but live them. So when this happens in the final analysis, in other words, when we have a sane world, we shall also have sane Africa. And as a matter of fact, if the rest of the world is insane and you try to make yourself sane, I'm sorry, you are making a mistake. The whole world is sick because it lacks Ubuntu, it lacks natural law, it lacks human rights. And these have to be restored everywhere. And as I've said, beginning with individuals. In other words, wherever you are, don't look aside and say, hey, you, no. Don't look at a leader, no. Look at your own self and live your Ubuntu. Use your natural law to do the right thing and respect other people's rights and in other words, be responsible. Apply the principle we know very well of the neighbor principle. So now, when it comes to Pan-Africanism, I am a strong believer in this, but I know very well that it has failed to work because of certain reasons. In other words, when we try to create, to correct situation, many problems where problems do not exist, we are not doing much. When you look at Kwame Nkrumah, you find that he thought of Pan-Africanism because he noticed that there were problems between those new states. You know, Ghana was the first one to be independent, but Ghana neighbors with Togo, and there was a border problem between the two. And the story is long. I don't want to get into this, but the point is he discovered that if people did not unite, then there would be, these problems would continue. Now, why didn't they? Why did they continue? Why do we today still live in this practice? And my point here is, if you want to understand Africa, go to Europe. Go to the West. Look at capitalism and see how capitalism is using Africa.
Prof, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You have a minute to kindly wind up your presentation.
Yes. I was commenting on Pan-Africanism because remember there is an idea that Ubuntu would lead to Pan-Africanism. And I'm saying sorry. We might, by the way, not even need this Pan-Africanism. If there is peace in the world, why should we need these countries we did not, after all, create? Remember, none of us called an African before these foreigners came to name us Africans. None of us called himself a Kenyan and so on and so forth. All these are the concoctions. And my idea is that we should get rid of these concoctions. But how do we get rid of them? By being human to one another. not only in Africa, not only in Kenya, but all over the world. That's why I was saying that we need to go beyond Africa and look at the West, look at capitalism, look at the current globalization. And if we start there, attacking the problem where it is, we shall get somewhere. Otherwise, saying, let's just build Pan-Africanism using Ubuntu, well, I think we are writing on water. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ernest, for your presentation. We apologize sincerely for the technical difficulties we've had, but we have enjoyed your presentation. We won't be taking questions due to time limits, so we will now be taking